I'll send some of the links of my radio stuff, too, that I put onto tape, like that Don Steele thing, if you've never heard it. I think you'd really enjoy that. I got stuff. A friend of mine, like 20 years later, sent them to me. I took these of you at KVFM. Really? Me doing transmitter readings in my little goofy sweater, my long hair. With our one cart machine, we had a plunger. It never worked. We had no production room. If you had to do production, you waited till you signed off at midnight.
And that is the voice of Artie Breyfogle. You can find him on Facebook at TV Fats. That's facebook.com/TV Fats. And last time we discussed Artie's favorite podcast to listen to. And we also let you know we'd be talking about one of 93 KHJ's longest running DJs during its top 40 era. In fact, he was the longest running DJ during the top 40 era, which lasted from 1965 to 1980. And this DJ was on from 65 to 74.
One quick thing. Radio. You usually had to be up all the time, if you were doing a music show, of course, 2.5, 3 minutes. You got to get up and do the spot, whatever, time and temp, and move on. The best guy ever, and I remember Jacobs in his book even put a memo out on it, Johnny Williams. You ever hear of him?
Yeah.
Johnny Williams was the all-night guy from midnight to, he didn't work a couple hours in the morning. They ran public affairs news, but till 6 in the morning till Robert W. And Johnny Williams went to work at midnight. He was a little kind of wiry guy with black horn-rimmed glasses. He was always up. You tune in at 2:54 in the morning. Johnny Williams and KHJ, hope you have a good time. It says, 2:54 on Boss Radio. And he'd do the promo for the monkey train or whatever. And, he was always up. And to me, he was a hero in that regards, that so many other guys and I would be guilty of it sometimes. You just would let down and every once in a while and somebody had a bad day or whatever. And he was just always there. And that was a rarity to find somebody that real pro all the time. Don Steele was the other one. I mean, Don never, did you ever hear Don down ever on anything? I mean, the later days, anytime. Never. He was that good. I'm sorry, go on with your thought. I just interrupt you all the time.
Yeah, no worries. As far as Johnny Williams, he was at KHJ longer than anybody. He was right. Midnight to 6 a.m., from 1965 to late 1974.
He went to Hawaii and started that thing with old radio people's names in it and everything.
I wonder if he's still around, because I know that...
a couple of years ago I looked and he was still alive, but I don't know. He'd be up there, because I'm 75 and I was in my late teens when he was in his 20s. So
because looking at the early pictures of him, he looks like Buddy Holly. And then
he was at DK. Yeah, that was him.
And then the latter years, he traded the horn rim glasses for wire rim and grew a beard.
A little more showbiz, but he didn't change on air. That was the beauty of it. He did his same old gig, and it was great. Somebody like that was out there all night long. Another guy that worked a while on KRLA midnight. What was his name? He became a real estate guy.
Bill Slater?
No, and he was excellent at segueing records and hitting things on the mark. He was the most dynamite guy I ever heard doing that.
Johnny Darren?
No, not Johnny Darren. God, I'll think of his name. He was there for about 2 years, maybe 3 years, and he was super, super good. He was just one of those magical guys, too. And it was the middle of the night, early morning. He'd be up there, pumping it out. There were some really good, talented people back in that era, and most of them never got, pats on the back. Most of them didn't make a hell of a lot of money. But guys like you and me, we appreciated them. And for many of us, they were the footsteps you would try to follow to go down the path. Be a success in a business that was very strange, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
I have a podcast. I haven't done much with it in years, but I remember I got caught recently. Facebook said they wanted to take it off because it referred to suicide. It's called My Worthless Life. And what it is, it's a satire that my life isn't worthless, talking about my parents getting locked in the toilet in the Eiffel Tower when I was 11 years old, and all the stuff that I've gone through life and the radio and everything else. I should probably do some new episodes. It's not, if anybody can find it. It's called My Worthless Life.
My Worthless Life.
There's a couple of guys. Do you spend any time on cable with YouTube and all that?
Yeah, I like to look at YouTube, especially watching old episodes of shows when they have the original commercials intact as a bonus.
Yeah.
Like, for
There's
instance...
one we were watching, Kim Levine. He did 6 episodes. CBS never gave it a shot. And it was very funny. Kurt, what's his name, from RoboCop was in it, and Adam Arkin was starring in it, and the gal from The Mom, and Malcolm in the Middle. Really good people in it. And him and his partner, Isaac Davis, wrote it. It's called Big Wave Daves, about guys who buy a sport shop on the north coast of Hawaii. And it was really, done for $2. And it's really good. And the second episode I saw, I had the commercials in it. And it was really fun to watch all that stuff. But here's some names I'd like you to follow if you can. Kurt Kaz, C-A-Z, K-U-R-T, C-A-Z, 2 words. Harold, H-A-R-A-L-D, Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-R, I think it is. Yeah. And also, there's a gal that lives here in Death Valley. She was here in town for years in Vegas, and she took pictures of tourists for 10 years. When you come out of the shows and you see the bank of pictures they took before the show started, you'd buy them in a little frame and all that. And then she was a model. And she'd do nude modeling, and nothing dirty or anything, but she had a group of people. She, for $500 a day, would take them out in the desert, and the guy would go to weird rock formations. She did that for years. Sarah, she goes by the name of Wonder Hussy, one word. So almost 700 videos about the Southwest, and she's phenomenally fun to watch.
How do you spell her name?
Wonder Hussy, H-U-S-S-Y, all one word.
Okay.
And I think you'll enjoy those guys. And the Vegas Matt, watch him with the slot machines, you'll get hooked. He's on every day. He's hilarious. He's a multimillionaire that uses his own money. And yesterday he lost $20,000 and just goes, see you tomorrow. Okay, all right. Sounds good to me.
As long as you give me a free meal, I'll lose $20,000. Thank you very much.
Yeah. He said those valuable points, he and his son, I guess, made tons of money on Bitcoin and stuff. And he did one of the largest real estate sales in the history of Las Vegas. So his son's a multimillionaire too, and he's only about 30 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, just, he's a lucky guy, very talented. He had a business. It was kind of, I think it was a little bit shady pyramid stuff back in the old days. He said it was a little off to the left, and he became multimillionaire in real estate. He was a bright guy, and he just loves playing slots. That's what he does every friggin' day.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty interesting. That would float your boat, He's happy.
Oh, yeah.
Keep him alive. That's what it's all about. Well, I can't wait to, check out your podcast and all that kind of stuff. Send some of the links of my radio stuff, too, that I put onto tape, like that Don Steele thing, if you've never heard it. I think you'd really enjoy that. I got stuff. A friend of mine, like 20 years later, sent them to me. I took these of you at KVFM. Really? Me doing transmitter readings in my little goofy sweater, my long hair, With our one cart machine, we had a plunger. It never worked. Just a horrible place. We had no production room. If you had to do production, you waited till you signed off at midnight.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like
get it off the board. Yeah, it was horrible. It was cheesy.
It's funny you mention that story, Artie, because I've been working for 99.5 KKLA for about 30 years now. It used to be KHOF, which stood for Kindred House of Faith. It was Gene Scott's station.
Oh God.
Yeah, Gene Scott.
Is the daughter still doing it in the black robe?
Yeah, she's actually Dr. Melissa Scott is Gene Scott's widow.
Oh, okay. That was
but
his daughter.
No, so what happened
was a character. He was on Century. He owed them at one time $250,000.
I believe that because I worked with one of the board operators was Doug Kramer.
Not the producer, Doug Kramer.
No, not the producer, Doug Kramer.
Okay.
In fact, the first question I asked him was, I said, "You're not the Doug Kramer who is the producer of the Brady Bunch and the Love Boat, are you?" And he said no.
Buy me lunch. Yeah.
And so Doug was a good guy, and he would always show up to work half an hour early. And he was somebody that had all these great radio stories. And he said that KHOF was originally led by a pastor named Ray Jock, really, really good guy. And they had sermon programs, some local programs. They also had an interchurch basketball play-by-play sponsored by the local Coca-Cola bottler.
God, that sounds mega weird. All right.
It was weird. So, so Pastor Jock retired in 1975 due to health issues, and Dr. Scott took over. And what happened was the first couple of years really weren't that much different from what it had been before. But they started preempting programs one by one. It got to the point where the basketball wouldn't start until Scott was finished speaking. So oftentimes...
And that could be 3-4 hours.
Exactly. And so sometimes 10 minutes of the game, they get a call on the hotline. It's like, Dr. Scott has 10 more minutes of things he wants to say. They said, we're in the middle of the game. He's like, Scott doesn't care. Just bail out and we'll join the game in progress. And so Coca-Cola bailed out. So he said the last couple of years of KHOF 99.5, it was nothing but Gene Scott radio 24/7. And sometimes he had to fill 15 minutes. What he did is he took a newspaper and started reading the stories. He had no cart machines, no drops, no commercial breaks, just straight 15 minutes of news. So he'd take like a 15-minute script and stretch it out, a 7-minute script and stretch it out to 15. Our top story today: President Jimmy Carter is in Bermuda today to discuss a peace treaty with the Israeli and the Egyptian government. Something like that. And I said, Doug, because Dr. Scott or King's House of Faith owned like 4 radio stations, 3 TV stations. I said, oftentimes Scott would sit down and puff his cigar, not say anything for a couple of minutes, and they go send y'all me your money and damn it. And
yep. Had the billboard or backboard back there that he hardly ever wrote on, but all this weird shit was on it.
Exactly.
All the Bible philosophy, which was like out of a spaceship somewhere. I mean, it was just like weird stuff. I used to watch it when I'd be a little drunk, get some vodka, and he was kind of amenable at that era. But like Saturdays, I'd watch all the 5 half hours of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and finished a bottle of vodka at the end before I went out to party that night. And I got into Fred Rogers really good. I go, yeah, Fred, hey, I've got my shoes on. I'm ready to go. Let's, But he was good. He hooked up, once again, people to people. That was the key to Fred Rogers.
It was. Well, Scott did not pay Doug oftentimes. And and Scott had this song. I didn't remember how it went, but I remember a friend of mine, his friend went to Scott's congregation, and the lyrics to the song were printed on the bulletin at church, and it went something like, "Those damn preachers, they can shove it." So whenever Doug would not get paid, I just started impersonating Scott. "Those damn preachers can shove it." And Doug would go, Doug would laugh. And so it's like, "Hey, Doug, has Mr. Nice Guy paid you this week?" "Oh, no, I gotta quit." And then Doug had these funny lines like, "Churches have the hymns, Dr. Scott has the hers. Of course, most people would prefer you have the hearse. Dr. Scott's a wonderful person. Don't believe it, just ask him."
Yeah. What a character. You talk about reading that. I got 2 stories on reading the news like that. The best was John Reed King was an old radio guy for years and years. And he'd been, after the Old Ranger, he was one of the hosts before Reagan did it at Death Valley Days, to open the show. And he retired, semi-retired in Fresno, and he was doing advertising work, and I knew him there when I was in Fresno all those years. And he told a great story how he was working CBS News, no, it was NBC. It was up in the tower, and he had to go from one studio to another to do the news. And top of the hour, and this is like the Blue Network. They had the Red and the Blue Network in those days, and it was hundreds and hundreds of radio stations. So he goes in, he picks up the newscast, and he reads the whole newscast. And they get out of the newscast, and the engineer comes around the corner and goes, "That was really good." He goes, "Yeah, that was yesterday's news." He read all of the previous day's news for like 15 minutes. It was a long, but I used to do that. I worked 2 days a week from midnight to 3 at old KRHM on 301 Kingsley, South Kingsley Drive off of Western, and on the second story of an old house. And at that time, it was owned by Jack Pink Cook. I don't know how he kept the station, but he had it there. 102.7, which became KISS. And we had a transmitter up on Mount Wilson, which could be heard from Santa Barbara to San Diego. And I would come in and, getting $2 an hour or whatever. And to get there, and at midnight I'd walk up and you would take, of all things, the Wall Street Journal. And you just pick it up and just start reading some story for 5 minutes. And when you got 3 or 5 minutes, and that's the latest news from the Wall Street Journal. You wouldn't even finish the story. You just, that was part of the thing they had to do for the FCC. Best story I was there was a guy who did a Spanish show at 3 a.m, and he would come in. Well, one time he called, I can't make it. You're going to have to, just play those records there, and the commercials are in the rack, and I'll pay you money next week. Now, I've been up for like 36 hours. So I go, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I go in the back. I'm going to lay down for just 10 minutes, and I'll play that one side of the album. 2 hours later, I wake up, and I hear this. And I come right back on going, RHM, Los Angeles. No one ever called. No one ever came. The good old days of radio.
Yeah, I've had 15 minutes to 20 minutes of dead air, so oh my goodness. Well, I told that story to Benny Martinez years ago, and he said to me, Bubba, you're not even close. I fell asleep one night at KHJ 97 in the overnight, had 1 hour of dead air. Nobody ever found out.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean, it just the one you get caught at is when the guy owned the station, in Podunk, North Dakota, and there was a classic radio show, remember? And then it was used, I think, in a movie too, where the guy pre-recorded the whole hour and went and did the murder and came back, and the tape had stopped, and that's how they were able to catch him, and they had done the murder and all that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good story. It was something similar. That was something tied in with the recorded show, which didn't work out right. And the detective figured it all out. Yes. Once again, you got to be truthful and honest. You can't be a murderer or psychotic on the radio.
Next time, Artie talks about what 93 KHJ boss jock he would love to have hired. Plus, he discusses his time as PD at KBFM. And he also points out the errors people often make in marketing their products and services.